evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I want to thank you for being here. We have the second half of our general government budget presentations this evening. Tonight is being filmed with NCM, and it will be rebroadcast on NCM over the next month or so until we hit town meeting in mid-May. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tony Mizuka, the town manager here in Norwood. We're going to hear from 6 different departments tonight. We have the Recreation Department, the Police Department, the Library, the Senior Center, the Board of Health, and Norwood Light and Broadband. As we go throughout the program and the presentations tonight, feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. If we do get too many questions, we may just hold them until the end of that department head's presentation to make sure we can get through the whole presentation. But we want it to be sort of a free-flowing discussion, so feel free to just raise your hand and the department head or I will call on you and we'll answer your questions to the best of our ability. So first up on tonight's set of presentations is Travis Farley, Director of Recreation. So we're going to turn it over to Travis.
All right. Thank you, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, like Tony said, my name is Travis Farley. I am the Recreation Director. I'm just going to go over a little bit about us to start off, and then I'll start getting into some budget material. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand, as Tony said. To start off, I thought it was important to start with our mission statement. So it's a little bit about us, why we do things, why we do programs, who we are, why we do everything. So our mission is to provide a variety of programs, activities, and events to enhance the quality of life and promote physical, mental, and social well-being for each individual within the community. So it's important for me that everyone knows why we're doing everything we're doing, what we are, who we are. Moving on to the next slide. Who we are. We have a full-time staff of 6. You have three rec administrators, recreation administrators, myself included. We have a rec administrator, a program director, myself, a superintendent. We have a admin assistant, Lee Kennedy, and then we have 2 custodians that staff a Civic Center. During the school year, we have about a part-time staff of 30. That 30 part-time staff include rec leaders, primarily high school kids that watch the front desk, help us out with towels, supervise the gym. We have a weight room attendant, so obviously we have a 4,000 square foot weight room in our building, so they help us monitor the weight room during peak times, make sure the equipment's clean, answer any questions that people might have while they're down there. We have building supervisors that help us out with nights and evenings, monitoring the building, and most importantly, we have instructors. We have fitness instructors, we have top instructors, so that primarily makes that up. During the summer months, which is definitely our peak time of program activity, we do a lot during the summer. We have pools going, we have play camp, senior play, junior play. Our summer staff moves up to 140 part-time workers. That includes instructors as well. So like I said, it includes counselors, it includes lifeguards, it includes maintenance instructors, pool tag checkers. So summer's a very busy time for us. So obviously it's a little chaotic during the summer. So that's a little bit about us during the summertime, who we are. So obviously, the picture on the left is some of our instructors. I have Eden Reardon, one of our lifeguards. The picture with all the counselors in the green are all of our play camp counselors. So that's junior play camp, and senior play counselors. The 3 young ladies in the middle are dance recital teachers. That's our T-ball picture. And then on the top you have our some of our full-time staff. And then what we do. So we manage the Civic Center, which I'm sure a lot of you have already heard. It's a 25,000 square foot community center. It includes a weight room, gymnasium, dance studio, a top room, a multi-purpose room. So we have a lot to do in the building. We're open about 87 hours during the school year. So obviously it's a lot of ground to cover during the week during the school year. We scale back during the summertime just because we have play camp, a lot of stuff outside. We try to switch gears and go more outside during the summertime. We have pools open on the weekend, so we stop weekend being open on the weekend in the community center. We manage 2 seasonal pools, Father Max and Haas. We also manage a spray park at Haas as well. We manage 9 playgrounds in town. We act as the field stewards for 28 playing fields in town, so we work with the DPW on that as well. The DPW performs a lot of the maintenance, and we actually schedule the fields and help them monitor the bills as well. And we manage a lot of the special events that everybody kind of knows us for. We have Norwood Day, Touch a Truck, Extravaganza, Trunk or Treat, Breakfast with Santa, Winter Carnival, and actually coming up in May we have our Norwood Recreation School dance recital. So we try to have about a special event a month. So that's kind of a lot of things we're really known for. This past weekend we just had our Easter egg hunt, actually right in front of the front lawn. We had about 250 kids at that. So it's a lot of fun. It's definitely what we're kind of known for special events. We manage about 250 different recreational programs throughout the year. So they range from top programs from little kids from 1 to 5 to all the way up to knitting and pickleball. We have seniors in there as well. So we definitely have a wide variety of programs ranging from tots all the way up to seniors. We offer a wide variety of fitness classes at the Civic Center. So you have Zumba, Pilates, yoga, spin throughout the week. We actually open at 5:30 in the morning, and we got a big, starting this year, we've started opening the Civic Center at 5:30. And we get a big morning group of workout people as well. And we got a big evening fitness class group as well. And we also serve for meeting places for youth organizations, nonprofits, and town boards. So anytime there's a town meeting, planning boards in the Civic Center, we have Toastmasters, Youth Sports has their weekly, monthly meetings in the Civic Center as well. So we have a lot of town meetings and nonprofits that have meetings as well in there. Participation. So this is a rough estimate because when we have rentals, like for example, the NBA, the Norwood Basketball Association will have their jamboree. It's kind of difficult to gauge how many people actually come in through the door. So this is just a rough estimate. We try to be conservative with it. So we probably have around 35,000 visitors a year between rentals, programs, drop-ins for membership. So it's a very happening building throughout the year, a lot of in and out, which we'd like to see a lot of foot traffic. And as I mentioned, we host ARC, we host CYO basketball, we host the NBA Jamboree, we host town meetings, karate tournaments, youth sports meeting, town elections, nonprofits such as Toastmasters. The recreation department as a whole on the program side, this year FY18 we had about 8,445 participants. That was actually up from FY17. We had about 7,750. So we actually saw a 9% increase in program numbers, participation this past year, which was good to see. Next up, those are just some program pictures from around the bottom right's the Summer Flick Series. That's our Summer Tots. That's a collaboration we do with the Senior Center, seniors and tots as well. And the top right is actually, or top left is our father-daughter dance. Collaborations. So we work hard as a department to try to collaborate with as many groups in town as we possibly can. We like to be involved as much as we can in the community. It's very important to us and me to build these relationships in town. So last few years we partnered with Norwood Police and Fire, Norwood Junior Women's Club, Friends of Norwood Center, Impact Norwood, a lot of PTAs, Willett PTA, Cleveland PTA. There's other PTAs in there that I just didn't have the room to list. Norwood Light, Norwood DPW, Norwood Diamond Club. The Norwood High School varsity sports, we've partnered with the football coach, the volleyball coach, and numerous other track coach on programs that we can offer. So those high school coaches actually come in and teach sports clinics, girls basketball. So we try to partner with as many of these high school coaches to get participation up. We partner with the Circle of Hope. We do a carnival during the summertime as well. NCM, and like I said, many more. Some of the pictures you see throughout the day is actually Chief Brooks. We have he came to read at our Summer Tots program. The excavator is our Touch a Truck program that we partner with the DPW, Light, Fire. The big picture on the bottom right is our Day of Hope Carnival. So we try to collaborate as much as we can with as many groups as we can. Something that we take good pride in. The budget, our budget as a whole is about $1,332,209 for FY20. It's kind of broken up into 3 categories. You have our salary, which is our part-time staff, our seasonal staff, our full-time staff, all in one category. Then we break into our operating expenses. So those are the operating expenses we have to operate the Civic Center, all the playgrounds that you see in town that we do the maintenance for. We do all the water we manage the water bill for town, irrigation, pools. We have 2 vehicles for our department that we manage as well. And then we get into our capital expenses. So our salary, like I said, is full-time staff, seasonal, part-time, overtime. Expenses, we have utilities, playground utilities. So like I said, water, any kind of utilities that we have at playgrounds that we need. Expenses, building maintenance. So I know it's a lot to take in. So I was going to say, does anybody have any questions?
Can I ask a question? So for, obviously you have your administrators, you have your staff in the office,
Yep.
your custodians. You manage the playgrounds, but who actually executes the work to actually fix items that happen? Because it doesn't sound like it's in your department.
No, it's not. So we try to partner with the DPW as much as we possibly can to cut costs, but they are very, very, very busy doing what they can. For example, the Bond Street playground, we have a wooden truck that we're hoping to replace. We bought the red truck to replace it with, but we're just working with the DPW to try to get it in. It usually takes a little bit longer because they've got a lot of things to do, but we try to work with them. In the event that they don't think they can do it, or it's not within the scope of what they think they can do, then we'll contract it out. It ends up being a lot more expensive, but we try to partner with the DPW as much as they can, and they have been a great partner in crime to help get playground equipment in. Or we've done community builds. Mr. Miller is big on community builds as well, so we try to cut costs where we can with that. Looking at my budget, does anybody have any other questions in regards to the budget before I move on? Pretty self-explanatory. I actually highlighted all the major changes on the next slide, so any changes you see in my budget. So from FY19 to 20, we did see a 5% increase in salary. It jumped from $817,000 roughly FY19 to $866,000 in FY20, primarily because of increase of minimum wage, which is a big one, cost of living, master step benefit for those who are eligible. The majority of the increase was the $12 to $12.75 minimum wage increase. Like I said, we have 140 seasonal people and rec leaders that are basically high school kids or college kids that are pretty much at minimum wage when we bring them in. So it's a huge piece of what we do. That explains for 8%. That's why our part-time budget went up 8% from FY19 to FY20. Went up from $289,000 to $313,000. And the minimum wage is actually going to continue to rise until 2023. It's actually going to be closer to $15 by the end of it. So it's going to continue to rise over the next few years. Unfortunately, it's out of our hands. It's something we need to do. We have lifeguards, we have pool maintenance, we have counselors that are all coming in at minimum wage that we need to abide by. So that number is going to continue to rise. It's a big piece of our salary. Our operating expenses saw a 1% decrease. We had a couple of one-time expenses. We had a generator transfer switch, which transfers the generator on when power goes out. That was a $13,000 expense this year. We did see a $10,000 increase in our playground utilities for water because the water rate actually went up. As I indicated, we manage the water bill for the town, so we work with the DPW on that. So the water rate increases, so that's just to make sure we cover ourselves with that budget as well. Our capital expenses, and this is a big one, saw a 28% decrease. FY19, we were able to complete a lot of projects. We're in the process of hopefully resurfacing the Savage basketball courts. We're going to be doing the Civic Center gymnasium floor over this summer. We actually did put a wall divider in the gymnasium to offer more programming in the gym. We actually just did a complete LED light changeover, so the old lights were now completely LED and energy efficient in the Civic Center, which is great. So we did a lot of heavy lifting in FY19 and FY20. We're going to be scaling back. We're going to be putting new bleachers in and a couple of weight room upgrades as well. So we saw a big dip in civic expenses, capital expenses. So all in all, we had about a 2% increase in our total budget from FY19 to FY20, which isn't a huge jump if you think of everything together. So we went from $1,309,000 roughly in FY19 to $1,332,000. Yeah.
So can I ask one more question? So obviously, one of the big topics is the potential override. I don't see a significant amount of cuts in your budget this year from the impact of not passing that. However, you said something very interesting that due to Mass state law, the minimum wage is going to continue to go up, and you rely on that minimum wage to be able to employ summer help and high school kids to help. If we don't find a way to grow revenue, whatever that is, what do you see your impacts moving past this year if that revenue doesn't come in?
So some of the items we identified that if we have to start trimming down the rec budget, it's going to first come from some of the civic maintenance and the civic equipment. So remember, we own the building, we maintain the building. We try to put money into the building every year to keep it. It's a recreation facility, we got to keep it up. That's one of the first things that's going to go. So as equipment starts to break, there's no repair money. As the building, and it's a 100-year-old building, as it continues to age, we're going to lose that repair money. We may have to look at either closing one of the pools, which we may strategically want to eventually hit a point where we only have one pool. But it's one thing to say we're going to move in this direction as a community because this is what's best versus just close it and leave it there and leave a hole in the ground. One of the other challenges we'll do is we'll have to start looking at all of our different extracurricular programs, some of the play camp programs, what's cash positive, what's not cash positive, how long the facility is open, do we start cutting down the hours? Those are sort of the things that we'd start sort of trimming away and would really start to hit the programming and would hit the quality of the facility. And in a 1-year hit, not too big of a deal, but 5 years of not replacing equipment and not really putting any money into the facility, it's going to start to deteriorate really quickly.
Thank you.
Could you comment on sources of revenue that you use to maintain, put on your programs?
Yeah.
Taxation versus fees?
Yeah, so the only programs that we offer that are funded by the town are Play Camp, which is our grades 2 through 5 summer camp. A lot of parents use that as an essential service for the summertime to take care of kids. We have about, on our low time, we'll probably have about 150 to 160 kids, and then our high point during the summertime, we'll have about 200 to 215. It's very popular. We get to town, it enables us to offer at a very affordable rate. I know we did the financial study with Mr. Jar. If you look at surrounding communities, we're well below, which is fine. We want more participants there, and we'll offer that to the community at a reduced cost. But the majority of programming that we offer is funded through the revolving fund. It is basically all the fees and stuff we take in from the programs that we offer are then paid. We pay our teachers, we pay supplies. We do fun events like our summer movie series that we do at the front lawn of the high school. Those free events that we can offer, the extravaganza, the Christmas tree lighting, stuff that we can give back to the community and offer those free events, we basically fund through our revolving fund. So any profit that we make with programming, we try to reinvest and offer free programming at a very affordable rate to the residents as well. So we try to keep things as affordable as we possibly can. I hope that answers your question. Ernie.
Hey Travis, just following up on Bob, and if it's in here, I didn't read it yet, so that you may.
Don't worry about it.
So the budget's $1.3 million.
Yep.
What, going to Bob's question on what you took in for fees for pool tags and camps and programs, how much of that $1.3 million would be basically offset by your income? From
I know it's kind of confusing because some
I know it all goes in the general fund, but
yeah, so some revenue goes back to the town and some program monies go to our revolving fund. So all the money that we make with swim lessons, because we're paying, the town pays those lifeguard salary, goes to the town. All the money that we get for pool tags goes back to the town. All the money that we make on play camp goes back to the town. Our receipts last year, so all the money,
receipts.
yeah, so receipts, that money we get back to the town, I think last year was around $220,000. So we try to absorb that, and I think this year we're about 10 to 15% higher than we were at this point last year. So we're on the uptick. So I know it's kind of confusing where money goes, where it doesn't, but it's basically everything pool related: pool tags, swim lessons, play camp, all of our memberships at the Civic Center, fitness classes. Since we pay a lot of that out of the town operating town salary, then we get that money back to the town.
So basically $1 million, out of $1.3 million, $1 million is coming out of taxation.
Exactly, probably roughly.
Yeah, it's $220,000 directly we get. We book as a budget book as a revenue in the budget directly from recreation programs, and then again gets split according to our revenue formula as part of our local receipts calculation.
And then the next question is and I should know this.
It's okay.
There's always the rec department is in charge of the fields now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is still school property per se, and the DPW maintains it.
It's an interesting relationship. It's an interesting relationship. So DPW does a lot of the work. They cut the grass, they fertilize.
DPW handles the grass.
We basically schedule the fields, and then they tell us when they're closed, or if a field is beat up, we're closing it for the season. And then they decide the irrigation schedule, but we manage the water bills. But yes, some of the fields are on school grounds, some are not, like Father Max.
Lights go out, that
Yeah.
comes under the rec department.
Exactly. So lights at Coakley, lights at Balch fall under us. So if they go out, we receive all the phone calls.
It's kind of a three-headed.
Yeah, it's like a three-headed monster there. But it's an interesting relationship, but it works out.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we're staffed that way, a lot of communities are, is your DPW staff. If you have just park staff doing just parks maintenance, you're not able to utilize them in the winter by costing them sort of your DPW and having the DPW employees. When your parks maintenance is set, we'll pull them to do a whole host of other items.
Yeah, if we were your traditional park and rec department, we'd have a park like branch of what we do, and we'd have a park foreman and they do all the fields. But like Tony said, we depend on the DPW to do all that.
Works.
Yeah, it works. It works out fine. They do it. Like I said, they're a great partner.
Thank you.
Further questions about the recreation department or the rec department budget? Thank you, Travis. Travis does have to head home this evening, but if you do have questions that come up, you can either ask us those tonight or feel free to just email and reach out to Travis. That's okay. Thanks, Travis. Next up, we're going to have Chief Brooks from the Norwood Police Department presenting his budget. We're going to go ahead and get that up on the screen.
Stick around a little bit. Sure. My wife's not going to kill me. Stick around a little bit.
Good evening. The photograph has nothing to do with the budget. I just want to photo. That's our recruiting. Very good. Okay, excellent. Thanks for Bob. That's our recruiting photo. The exam is actually Saturday, so the billboard has come down. You don't have to look at it anymore. So anyway, so let us get into the budget. So I guess the first point that I want to make, and I'm going to kind of go back and forth between our programs and dollar amounts and that sort of thing. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is the way the budget is broken down, because I'm not sure it's something that the general public would necessarily understand. You know, we don't make a product, we provide a service. We don't have overhead, we don't have raw materials. So really the vast majority of our budget is in the area called salaries. In reality, it's salaries and overtime makes up that chunk of the budget. In any given year, 90 to 92% of a budget is that. The other parts are very, very small. So you see new equipment, which usually is new police cars. And then less than 1% is telephone. About 1% is transportation, which is essentially fuel. Expenses or incidentals is really only about 5%. That's not so much for an understanding of the budget at this particular point in time, but when it comes to transferring money, sometimes we're asked about why we're always transferring out of expenses and into salaries, and for a few reasons that I can go into later if you'd like. It's such a small sliver of the pie that are our expenses. That it's almost built in such a way so that we necessarily run short in a few accounts there, and we have some underspending in some salary accounts. So that's why that typically occurs at the spring town meeting. So when we talk about salaries and staff, we were actually paying. So we have 72 employees. That's 61 sworn. The department has fluctuated over the years. I've been around Norwood, anywhere from a high of 62 officers to a low of 58. When I came back here 7 years ago, we were down to 58 officers. We're now up to 61. According to the FBI Uniform Crime Reports, municipal police departments in the Northeast run about 2 officers per 1,000 residents. So you see that we're right really on track as far as our sworn personnel complement. We also have 7 civilian dispatchers. We have a full civilianized desk. A lot of times during the day, many times in the evening, we have 2 dispatchers working. We just run 1 dispatcher on the midnight shift. This is actually National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. So congratulate a dispatcher if you see them during the week. And then we have 4 support staff. If Cindy Katie is watching from home, she'll be mortified that I used her photograph, but between my secretary, the secretary and detectives, a couple of custodians, that makes up our 72 employees. So numbers-wise, just to give you a sense, you know that the way that the budgets here in Norwood is that the salary of the department head is always broken out. The second category is really everybody else who's full-time. So that's the other 60 police officers, the dispatchers, and those 4 support staff. Traffic supervisors, in some towns called crossing guards, we call them traffic supervisors, are part-time employees, and those are the salary numbers. This year there was a slight change in the budget in that where it says salary clothing. The traffic supervisors, unlike police officers, so police officers get a clothing allowance every year by contract. They go to one of the uniform vendors, pick up what supplies they need, and we are direct billed to a certain amount per officer. Traffic supervisors receive that in their paycheck. So as a result of that, the town accountant's office has asked us to split that out. So salary clothing, that number is really just for traffic supervisors. Uniforms for police officers are in the expense side of the budget. Then you see those other, those other benefits, salary benefits that are given to our personnel. You'd be familiar with those categories: longevity, shift differential, holiday pay, defibrillator pay, and then education incentive. A few years ago, education incentive was moved from its own line. It used to be about $600,000. It's now moved into the officer's regular salary. So that education incentive is really just the deputy chief and me. And then training. Training was another change this year in that it used to be that there was 1 account in the salaries part of the budget for training. And it was both the overtime we spend on officers who are in training and the expenses that are related to training. So this year that's been broken out, and about 25% of that old training amount is on the salary side, the other 3/4 is on the expense side. Then you see we have a number of overtime lines. It's self-explanatory. They're broken down by shift replacement, court, investigations, and overtime doesn't fit those categories. So to give you an idea of what we do on a day-to-day basis, I get a pop-up on my screen every morning. I think Mr. Mizuko does too. In any 24-hour cycle, we run anywhere from 65 to 90 log events in a 24-hour cycle. So it's a nice town, it's a peaceful town, but there's a lot going on. We're busy. So the breakdown you see is actually for calendar year 18, so that we had totals. Calls for service was 19,000, but our total log events was 27,000. So the difference is traffic stops, officers setting up traffic enforcement in neighborhoods, officer-initiated proactive activities that aren't necessarily calls for service. There's a breakdown of our crimes, the so-called Part 1 crimes that are used in the measurement of crime rates. Again, I think self-explanatory. You see B&Es up there, which is break-in enterings. We really don't see as many house breaks as we used to. People don't break into houses, they sit at home and compromise your credit cards and that kind of stuff. So that's B&Es, all buildings. It's not just house breaks, and we actually see a few house breaks. Kind of on the motor vehicle side, last year our department wrote 5,000 citations. So just to give you an idea, and I'm somewhat of a numbers guy, we've got over 400 roadways, 110 miles of roads. We have, Mark Bryan tells me, 558 crosswalks. We have over 30 signalized intersections. Our officers work traffic enforcement, all shifts. All officers, all shifts work traffic enforcement. That's radar, the rotary Pendergast, stop signs, red lights, texting while driving, pedestrian safety. We work all violations, but we try to be driven by two things: citizen complaints and data, crash data. And so that's how we pick our spots, and that's how we funnel our traffic enforcement. So you see there are 5,000 citations written by our officers. In any given year, we investigate about 400 crashes. We respond to twice as many crashes, but a lot of those are paper exchanges, minor damage. But we actually have to send a radio car, conduct an investigation, go back to the station, write a report. That's happening 400 times a year. We arrest about 65 to 75 drunk drivers in a given year. That's a 2018 figure that's behind me. And protective custody. It's either people who are drunk or under the influence of narcotics to the point that they're a threat to themselves or the public. And that happened 100 times last year. We respond with the ambulance, not every time they go, but on trauma, cardiac issues, that high-risk things, choking, that sort of thing. Any kind of accident where there could have been an assault or there could have been a shove or something like that. We did that over 1,900 times last year. Well-being checks. Joe's supposed to show up at work. It's not like him to miss work. We haven't seen him for 2 days. The newspapers are on his front steps. We do that 700 times a year. Mental health custodies. Those are custodies. That's not mental health calls. We do a lot more mental health calls. But where we actually have to take a person into custody, either on our own authority because they're a threat to themselves or others, or on court authority, that happened 136 times. Nothing to do with the budget. I just love foot patrol. So you see, we do a lot of that, and not only on the beats, but our officers that are assigned to radio cars that are in cruiser patrol in the areas are assigned all shifts, all officers to get out and do a foot patrol during their shift. So we see them wandering around Shaw's or walking through CVS or walking through a neighborhood or something like that. They're all required to do that, but of course we have foot beats both in the center of town and then through South Norwood. Spend a lot of time in the schools. We have 2 full-time school resource officers, Officer Mahoney at the Coakley Middle School, Officer Murphy here at the high school. Lieutenant Patton actually launched a program last year, which I thought was brilliant. We have now school liaison officers. 7 patrol officers who have stepped forward and given special training in dealing with kids and juvenile issues, who are a liaison to the principals at our elementary schools, to include St. Catherine's. They're having a problem with a parent, they're having a problem with a traffic pattern and pick up and drop off. They just want a cop to be at, pasta night, whatever. The elementary school principal on a cell phone calls the officer directly, and we manage all of that. When a school resource officer can't be at school at one of at either the Coakley or the high school, we take one of the SLOs and we sub them in. So they're getting more exposure to kids. We make sure that we always have cops in those particular schools and that's part of our program. We're also in and out on Read Across America. We're in and out of the schools. During the week, any given day, the sergeant will assign a car to go to a school either for a recess or a dismissal or a lunch hour, so the officers get a chance to meet the officers. We want kids in Norwood to meet Norwood officers earlier in life and have good relationships with them to the point that they can approach officers if they ever have a problem later on. So programs and services, those letters stand for Citizen Police Academy. We run that about once or twice a year. That's an 8-week Monday night program for classes given by the officers to the citizens who attend. Rape Aggression Defense is just for women. As the name implies, it's a self-defense course for women. We gave one recently that was targeted at girls at the Norwood High School. We gave one for female faculty recently. A couple of times during the year, we do an open course for any woman in the town who wants to take it. We also do a CPR class with the fire department, usually once or twice a year. We run 2 youth academies for middle school kids. Every summer we do a bike safety day. We run open house. People can have us install their car seats on Saturdays by officers who are trained in that. Our honor guard attends events and leads town parades. We participate in Read Across America, like I said, and lately we have been doing training for companies and groups that have asked for active shooter mass killer training around security and prevention and that sort of thing. And we've been doing that on an as-needed, on-request basis. For expenses, this is the 5% of the budget. You see a couple of the drivers that have typically driven our transfers. At the top of the list is vehicle maintenance. We have a fleet of 20 vehicles I'll talk about in a minute, and that maintenance can really fluctuate. We do buy the cars with extended warranties to try to bring that down, but it's still, the cars are running 24/7. They get shut off at 10 minutes of midnight, they get turned back on at 5 minutes past. They're idling at crash scenes. We don't use cars the way the rest of the public does. They're just always moving and always rolling. The other that I'll just, without going down the whole list, the other I'll point to is medical. I don't think the public realizes that when a cop gets hurt in the line of duty, there's no health insurance for that. The town pays for that. That's by state statute. So right now I have an officer out with a shoulder injury. Not only did she need the surgery, we paid for the surgery, but we have a sergeant in every shift, so it means I'm replacing her in overtime. Medical is a moving target, it always has been. Chiefs before me, I remember them talking about it. So our total expenses is $608. By the way, the other thing I should have mentioned there too is that there's the other side of the training. So that's the kind of tuition and expenses side of the training. That includes ammunition, tuition to go to training, that sort of thing. So speaking of training by state regulation, we have to train all officers, every officer, 40 hours a year in training. We actually go above that. All dispatchers are required to receive 16 hours of training every year. We train, as you see in the list, firearms and tactics. We do a lot of firearms training. There's a misnomer out there that if you don't use your firearms a lot, you don't need to train as much. The opposite is true. The more you train and practice, the more proficient you get. The more proficient you are, the more confident you are. And when you're confident, you use restraint. So in a recent episode that was in the newspaper that's actually pending trial, I don't want to get into all of it, that our officers were fired upon at the end of a pursuit. They saw cover and did not fire back, which I thought was remarkable restraint. And I won't necessarily say that it was because of their training, but those are some of the outcomes you get when and we don't just shoot at paper, we shoot from behind car fenders, we shoot by rolling up on a scene in a car at an outdoor range. We do force-on-force training so that you're shooting at a live target using simulated ammunition. We do firearms training in all sorts of different levels and configurations. We do legal update every year. The One Mind campaign is on mental illness. You probably read about that, or I've talked about it. All officers, all dispatchers have received specialized training in dealing with the mentally ill. And a third of us, one complement, have been to a 1-week specialized program called Crisis Intervention Training. And when we have a mental health call, we always send a CIT trained officer to help manage that call, which brings down use of force, which makes us more effective, and I think is a comfort to our families who have a mentally ill person in the family. Our fleet, I've alluded to it before, but that's what it is, a mix of both marked and unmarked cars, and typically replace 4 cars a year. Mr. Mizuko and I have talked extensively about that. Again, these cars are not being used like the family car. We really do need to replace 4 a year. More often than not, that fourth car is a marked unit, sometimes it's an unmarked unit. But that's how our fleet breaks out. And I just want to wrap up by just mentioning that we do also receive some grant money, and there are some of the numbers on the screen. So we received some money from State 911, which actually comes off your cell phone bill, and cities and towns receive that money back to help defray the cost of paying dispatches. We have traffic and safety grants. This current fiscal year, you see so far we received over $90,000 from State 911. We are currently in a grant on pedestrian and bicycle safety, and you might have heard me talk about that at a recent selectmen's meeting. We have a current grant for traffic enforcement. And also, without numbers attached, we have a recovery coach that works part-time at our department that helps us interact with people who are addicted and help find them treatment, then track that treatment. Deputy Chief Kelly has done most of the work on setting that up, and we also participate in an overdose database that's now countywide. And again, Deputy Chief Kelly has led the law enforcement side, and it's been paid for by the District Attorney's Office that tracks overdoses countywide. So if no resident overdoses in Dedham, we get an alert, and then we feed that information to the recovery coach, and she reaches out, deals with that person, that sort of thing. So that's been an enormous help to us. Again, I just like that picture too, so. But I can answer any questions that you might have. Yes, ma'am.
Chief Brooks, can I ask just one quick question? So the vehicle maintenance, obviously you have to maintain the vehicles.
Right.
How is that procured? Is that done through the town, or does that get outsourced to an outside mechanic? Do you have an in-house mechanic, I guess is my question?
Yeah, we don't have our own mechanic. I know Fire does. We really don't. Most of our vehicle maintenance is done at the dealership.
Okay.
Whether it's whether it's covered under the maintenance agreement or whether it's just going in for maintenance, we do some tire and fluid changes and that sort of thing at Norwood Tire, but really the majority of it is either at Central Motors or Jack Madden, depending on the unit. Yes, Doc.
I have two questions. One is, I didn't see any statistics on incidents that happened at the school, and the other is that you didn't mention having a family abuse counselor, which I think is important.
Yes, it is. So, and that's another, again, that's kind of a grant that doesn't have a dollar figure attached to it. What Donna mentions is a DOVE grant. We have a domestic violence coordinator who works out of our department part-time. She's there on Tuesdays. She reads all our domestics. She reaches out to victims and witnesses. She kind of helps them if they have a court appearance coming up. And that's by DOVE, which is Domestic Violence Ending, based out of Quincy. So we share a domestic violence coordinator with them. As far as the number of, I don't have information off the top of my head about radio calls at schools. We do have them from time to time, parent issues at elementary schools chiefly, and then we have a higher volume of calls at the middle school and high school. I don't have those numbers, but we can get them. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Any other questions for the chief on the police budget or police operations? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Chief. Next, we are going to bring up Carrie McCarthy, who's the director of the Norwood Senior Center.
Hi everybody, I'm Carrie McCarthy. I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Aging / Senior Center, located on 275 Hospital Street in the Savage Center. And what the core responsibilities of the Council on Aging is to identify the needs of the older people in the community, to educate the community at large, and to design, promote, and implement services that are needed to coordinate the efforts, which brings us to the Senior Center. So I'll start with our outreach program. We have a full-time outreach coordinator. She is there Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. And some of the things that she assists with are our farmers market coupons, our fuel assistance. She helps people with their housing applications and housing options, legal service referrals. We have a very big medical equipment loan program. She helps people with personal response systems, transportation options, and staff. These are the statistics for 2018. You can see a big part is just general information, just people calling saying, help, what can I do? I ran out of food, I'm lonely, I need to move. This is where it all begins with the general information. What resources does Norwood have to help me? And again, medical equipment loan program is very helpful to people who are going in for a quick surgery, don't want to purchase a bath seat or a walker or a cane. They can come to the senior center and borrow it and return it when they're on wheelchairs. Like today, somebody needed a wheelchair to go to a funeral, so they were able to come pick it up and bring it back when they were done.
Carrie, that program was so popular, we used to let other communities utilize it, but we had to restrict other communities.
Right. You have to be a Norwood resident to use any of the outreach services, but in particular the medical equipment loan program, because we were getting no other town in the area does to the extent that we do. So it's strictly for Norwood residents. Wellness and exercise. So if you walk into the senior center at any given time, there's an exercise class going on, someone's in the fitness room. We have blood pressure clinics, diabetic workshops, flu clinic with the Board of Health, we collaborate with them. We have a hearing aid clinic, we do manicures, massage, waxing. Those are the exercise classes we have. Currently we have 16 exercise classes a week. We're adding 2 more in May. The need is for a little bit more advanced classes, so we're adding 2 more classes in May to the senior center schedule. And you can also come in and walk in the gym as well. Programs and activities. We have a full-time program coordinator and a part-time program assistant. These are just some of the activities that we do at the senior center. Like I said, there is something going every single day, all day long. The line dancing, tap dancing, those are all done through volunteers. Watercolors, the gentleman's been coming, I think he said for 14 years, he's been doing the watercolor class at the senior center. What we do, if there's something that you want to learn, we'll try to find someone to come teach you. Next month we'll be starting a photography club, just learning how to use a camera again. We just started collaborating with the library. Their information technologist is coming over to teach the seniors how to use their iPad or their telephone or try to get up with the technology. So we're fortunate that we have so many departments that we can go to help them. Programs and trips. Another thing that our program coordinator does is she helps with all the trips that we do. We go to Gloucester to a lobster cruise. They go to Maine. They do the New Hampshire turkey train. They just went to Mohegan Sun, the new MGM casino in Springfield. So we collaborate with Fox Tours and Best of Time, so we do day trips. Our volunteers at the senior center, that actually should say serving the health insurance needs for everyone. Norwood is very lucky. We have 2 shine counselors. Some senior centers have 1, some have 1 every other week. We have 2 a week, and they see people. Their schedule is always filled, and they help anybody that's new to Medicare. They help them with their forms, especially during open enrollment, which is huge. Our front desk volunteers, we have 4 a day, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, and they really field all the people who enter the senior center, all the scheduling for the bus. They take the money for the trips, etc. AARP tax preparers, they just ended. The gentleman just brought in his statistics, and he served 320 people, the 3 volunteers on Tuesdays, 320 people, and we're happy to say that they got $82,000 back in circuit breaker tax. So that was that's a very helpful service, and it's no charge. There's no charge for that. And then the miscellaneous volunteers, we have over 30 who run the different groups, who will knit for the veterans. Anything I ask, we can always find a volunteer to run. The volunteers run all the card games, all the dances, so we're very lucky to have them. The senior center bus is a service provided Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. The Friends of the Norwood Senior Center bought the bus for us. They paid for it, and they will replace it when we need it. They also provided $25,000 to the garage that the bus is now able to park in. We do lots of rides. Every day there's a waiting list. The unfortunate part is we only have 1 bus. all the surrounding towns around us have 2 to 4. We only have one bus 5 days a week, so it's very hard to try to get everybody in. But they do definitely benefit from having Ellen as the bus route, for sure. So we anticipate more rides in 2019. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs, they provide a grant. Every city and town in Massachusetts gets, for every resident 60 and older, gets, this year's for $12. So we received $78,504 for every resident over 60, and that's by the 2010 census. So we're really hoping with this new census, it's going to be online, so it's really important that we get every senior counted because it does give us $1 a month. Intergenerational programs, we really have some great intergenerational programs at the Senior Center. We do a pen pal program with the Oldham School. We, now that the little pre-K is in our building, we do a lot of things with them. We collaborate with the LEAD program. Their students help Ellen on the bus on grocery days. They bring in the groceries for the seniors. And we have our lunch program, which is an intergenerational program with the Phoenix Academy, which is an alternative high school. And the students and their chef come in and cook lunches for the seniors 4 days a week during the school year. And on Tuesdays, we have Tuesday night suppers in the summer where we feed 100 of our seniors. Me and another staff person cook the dinner, and we invited all the community members to come in and serve. So Chief Brooks served, town manager served one night. So we try to bring in guest servers. They never know who's going to serve them their dinner that night, and we're very lucky to do that. We do that, it kicks off in July with a free dinner, and then it's $5 a week after that. And it's just more of our intergenerational. So you'll see here, the Little Mustangs came and sang for us at Christmas time, so now our seniors go sing for them during the holidays. So that's our Valentine's. We do a great intergenerational program with the high school, with the junior class. It's called For Those Who Serve, We Thank You. All our seniors bring all their memorabilia from their wartime and display it in the senior center, and the class, the junior class, walks over and is able to view all the exhibits. They were able to hold a Purple Heart in their hand or see the uniforms that they wore. It's a really big exhibit, and we're going to do it again this year. And here is our budget. As you can see, it's pretty much the only thing that's gone up is the salaries due to contractual, but everything else has stayed the same. And when we, one of the benefits of the grant is it helps me offset some of the cost of the budget for building repair or overtime, or my summer staff person. And that's it. Any questions? Good.
Do you help with the tax abatement process for seniors?
We have the senior tax workup program. Currently, we have 4 seniors working at the senior center for it. I think there was 6 last year.
And how does someone get information on that?
So they go to, it's through the Human Resource Department, and then they just have to say that they want to volunteer at the senior center. So for sure, we can always find something for them to do, for sure.
Awesome.
So donations made, are they to the Friends of?
Well, we get both. A lot of times when a member passes, they do donations to the senior center. So we do have donations account, but a lot of them go to the Friends of the Norwood Senior Center, the Norwood Council on Aging, and they're very good. So some of the things they'll purchase for us, when the computer club needed a computer, they bought a computer. They fund some of our entertainment. Like I said, for the garage, they gave $25,000. My grant gave $10,000. So pretty much anything we ask, they'll help us out with. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carrie. Good job. Take care of All right, next up we're going to have Sigal Reese, who is the Director of Public Health with the Board of Health budget.
Hi, like I said, I'm Sigal Reese, Director of the Health Department and report to the Board of Health.
So I just want to back up a little and talk about public health, because not a lot of people know what it is and how we work. But really, our job is to prevent disease. How do we do that? So I like to say in public health that your health is more indicated by your zip code rather than your DNA, where you live. And it's kind of good that I went after a few of my colleagues here, because we've heard a lot of their programs and how they impact our health. From the rec department to the senior center, the police department. So really your zip code and the services that you have available in your community have a real impact on your health. And we call that the social determinants of health. So where you live, access to food, your social economic status, education level, all those have an impact on your health. So as a health department, we like to take an upstream approach. So we're, again, preventing disease. So we're working up here in community impact areas in public health department. Down here, you see more health care. This is when you go to your physician, you get health care based on an individual level. We do a little midstream with things like our flu clinic, and I'll get into more numbers in a little bit, but again, just big picture. We do a little work in here, but most of our work is going to be around laws, policy, community engagement, working with people. How can we create a community that allows the population to be healthy? And throughout all of that, we're always looking at equities. And this is a great image. There's a lot of images about what the difference between equality and equity is. And I say if you want people to participate in your bike race, continue the analogy here, and you give them all the same bike, that would be equality. That's not going to be good. Obviously, this guy doesn't work for him. It works great for her. Way too big for the child. And this person can't even get on it. But if you provide your services in a way that's equitable, it's tailoring them to meet different needs in different areas of your community. So that really is interwoven through all our policies. How can we be more equitable as we get information out? Because all this is going to affect everybody in different ways. So always thinking about that. So now to bring it back down in order. This is your health department in action. This is my favorite picture because it's probably the first year I started about 12 years ago. And I didn't have any gray hair, and I looked a lot younger. So I'm going to make sure we put that in all the presentations. But one of the close things is actually a fish advisory for the Neponset River. Some fish, we do know a lot of people also do fish in the Neponset River and want to make sure they're not eating certain species because they are contaminated with PCBs. And that fish advisory still exists. We post every once in a while, but and this is through the Department of Public Health issues those advisories, and we work to post out in the community and get information out about that. This is the public flu clinic. We do about 200 of our 800, and again, I'll get more into the numbers in a little bit, at the public clinic at the senior center. So that's a great partnership. I do want to back up a little and say, again, it's those partnerships with the other departments that really allow us to have that community-wide impact. So they're really valuable partners, and we've heard a lot of that in our presentations already, and how important that collaboration is for the different departments to work together. Then we have our hazardous waste day. We know what this is? Yeah, Charlotte gets it. So this was actually, I walked into her house and I slowly backed up out of the basement when I saw that. It's not too friable, but they were pipes with a lot of friable asbestos. That just means asbestos is breaking apart, and there's a serious exposure issue there. So we walk into that. Not a boiler, but you'll see pipes pretty often. This is pretty rare to see. Most of those have been abated by now. Mosquito control. This restaurant is no longer here, that's why I put it. All these pictures have been resolved because I didn't want to put up people's homes where the issues weren't resolved. Most of them have been demoed, and nobody knows which houses it is. But so we obviously do food inspections. That's what most people know that we do. But we're involved in mosquito control down here. Hoarding is that's really the intersection of we see a big intersection with mental health and housing cases when we deal with hoarding cases and the complexities of that. And this is just a whole lot of things. We've got hoarding, we've got excessive mold growth, we've got tenant-landlord situations. So this was a very complex case where we had hoarding, we had mold issues, we had a very difficult getting compliance on that. That house has actually been completely gutted and renovated. So that's a success. And then over here we have our Minds Matter Coalition. This is a meeting. Mr. Bob, which I'm on town meeting members, we call Mr. Out of Order now. From when we called for out of order at town meeting in the wrong time. But so this is our coalition meeting, and then again, partnering with the rec department, we were able to get the Mega Brain for Norwood Day, which was a great success. So this is just a few images. Oh, and my special one. Who can spot the violation up there? I'll make it bigger. How are you going to get to the hand so you can wash your hands? It's completely blocked. So this, obviously, restaurant owner, and again, this restaurant isn't around anymore, thought that this was a good idea to put this unit right here. And we literally can't even reach the hands. So we're obviously not washing our hands, not preventing disease. So in the department, this is our org chart. Director, I report to the elected Board of Health, elected officials, Kathy Bishop, Joan Jacobs, and Carolyn Riccardi, the other 3 board members. We meet on a monthly basis. The past 2 years, we have been awarded the Director of Communities grants. We were able to add 2 staff people. It's 1.4 FTEs, and those are totally grant-funded positions. And then we have the contracted program. You'll see some of the cost savings in the budget, but 2 years ago we switched from an in-house dental program to a contracted service, and really it came down to we weren't able to keep up in compliance with the clinic. We actually had a clinic in town hall with the dental care and everything, and compliance was getting really expensive with the new equipment and the requirements to run a dental office in town hall. So we had already worked with Dr. Stone during the screenings in the schools. So what we do now is we contract, and he actually sees kids in his office for cleaning, sealings, and extensive dental care if needed. So that's seen huge cost savings, rather than having the staff and again keeping up the maintenance of the clinic. We do contract for $1 for a physician to write all our orders too. So that's important that we have that physician supervision for some of the direct care that our nurse does, like the flu clinics and the blood pressure, and she does B12 and some other health services that she does. We need to have the physician's orders to do those. And then a recent addition with animal control division coming under the health department. So you can see that again reflected in the budget. So managing that, the animal control division. It's been a great addition. A lot of what animal control does is rabies control, which is disease prevention. We'll get into some of those numbers too. Here are the numbers. So like I said, we have 8 staff, but 7.4 are FTEs and 1.4 are grant funded. And we have the addition of animal control within the health department, so that has also increased our size. As far as environmental health, we do a lot of inspections out in the community. We issue not only food, housing, pools, those are just the big ones. We do tanning, we do nuisance inspections. We're out there permitting a lot of establishments. These are FY18 numbers to give you a full year. 938 permits and license, 264 food inspections. So those are unannounced routine food inspections, re-inspections, and also follow up on complaints. And that's actually one individual that does that, and he does all the pools. So that's a very busy man out in the community. 68 complaint inspections, 44 of those were actually housing inspections. I would say that number looks a lot less than our food inspections, but those are a lot more time-intensive cases. They usually go on for months. Recently, this area didn't have a housing court. We now have a housing court in Brockton that we can go to, and it's actually expedited cases a lot more. They have housing specialists, people, judges that know the code. We went in there, and a lot of them have come from Boston Housing Court, and they do a lot of the landlords we were dealing with by name.
Chapter 2 of the state sanitary code real quick. Chapter 2 of the state sanitary code.
Yeah, so most of these are all state regulations that that the Board of Health has the authority to enforce. So Tony just mentioned the state sanitary code. It covers minimum standards for housing, pools, tanning, food safety. So all that is covered under the state sanitary code, with the local health department being the authority to inspect that.
And anyone living in a rental unit, you can request through your local health department a state inspection through the state sanitary code, and that comes through the health department.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, that's what you meant. The difference between a complaint versus a permit. So we obviously don't permit all housing, but by law, if someone calls us with a complaint, we have to do an inspection. And then, so our health services, there are reportable diseases. So it's an online reporting system. If you get a blood test at your doctor, and it comes on through the state system, it's called the MAVEN system, we get a notification. If there's any isolation or quarantine we need to do, usually say it's a salmonella, we've got to make sure that isn't someone that's a food handler, which is a very broad definition. If you're a nurse in a hospital and you give somebody medication, you're considered a food handler. It's not just people that work in restaurants. Then we have to restrict you from work. We have to call your employer and say, you can't go to work until you prove that you're disease-free. We won't get into the stool sampling collection process. But so those 319, and that's all diseases. That's everything from Lyme to diseases like I described, the salmonella to tuberculosis. That's all reportable diseases, 319. And that's always listed in the annual report by disease too, if you do want a number broken down. 800 flu vaccines we do every year. We actually were up a little this year. We had higher demand for it, which is great. I always say we used to do one flu clinic a year at the senior center, and we would do about 600. Now we do like 200 at the senior center, and we have it at the senior center, but it's really for anybody 14 and older real vaccinated. Now we have to sort of take our pony show out into the community, and we do vaccines at the schools. We try to really bring the vaccine out to everybody. It's widely available, which is great for public health. The more people vaccinated, the better. But for us, our numbers over the years have gone down. This past year's first year ticked up, and that'll be important in budgeting in a minute. That number is self-funding, so we want to make sure to keep that number up. Blood pressure, I talked about dental. We have a helmet program, Sharps Collection, which also is funded from the reimbursements for flu vaccines, which I'll get to in a minute. We're on the hazardous waste days, so just some numbers on how many vehicles go through. This has really been where a lot of the development in the health department has been going, because when we think about what really influences your health that I spoke to earlier, it's really those community programs. So Impact Nord is a substance use prevention coalition. The staff of that is grant funded, but also it's really about collaborating within the community and a community-wide response to substance use. Sort of through that and through other avenues and collaborations through the CIT, we put together the Minds Matter Coalition, which again has many of the same members of Impact Nord, but it deals with mental health. We know substance use and mental health are very clearly tied. We did obtain a grant for that to provide the Interface Referral Helpline, which is a mental health helpline for people looking to get mental health services, outpatient services. But also working on stigma and mental health in the community. Minds Matter, and that's a partnership with Walpole also. Regulation, because again, if you think about upstream prevention, really dealing with policy, so we do a lot of regulation development. And the Board of Health has a unique authority to develop regulations. It's really just a Board of Health hearing. We like to involve community collaboration, of course. And we do those when we have public hearings, but they have pretty strong authority to develop regulations, and you see that a lot with our tobacco regs. Tobacco is growing and changing so quickly, we're struggling to keep up with it, and a lot of people have been talking about juuling and e-cigarettes now. We have pretty progressive regulations, but actually on Monday we will be talking about changing them again, just to keep up with the industry, which is a challenge because it's changing very quickly. Emergency preparedness, grant writing, participate with the planning department site plan review. And then these numbers are new for me, but I just want to give a little information on animal control. And again, a lot of the job is disease prevention with the rabies and safety with dog bites. It does quarantine animals very routinely. Usually a quarantine is in the individual's home, but he is out issuing those orders. And then impounds and adoptions and animal bites is again a safety issue. Can I take questions now?
Is that Henry? I thought that was under the police.
Henry, yep, is the animal control officer, and he's managed by my department now. He used to be under the general manager.
He used to report directly to the town manager. So animal control has changed over the years. It used to just be the dog catcher, when that's all they sort of did is a dog went loose and you went out and sort of caught the dog. But a majority of what they do now is more related to public health and public safety. So you think of the police who are training to respond to an active shooter situation and responding to something like that, if you had that. Animal control no longer really fits with police departments, whereas it used to be just call the cops and have the dog catcher come out. A lot more of what he does is related to public health. We had an issue a couple of years ago where there was diseases in chicken coops, and you have to know to make sure that if Henry goes into coop A and this is the disease type that's there, he has to make sure it doesn't get transmitted to another coop, because that can then become communicable to a human being. And the police department is no longer, in most communities, just designed to handle disease prevention in that sense.
And a lot of functions in public health sort of intersect with other departments, and that's why you hear about all these collaborations, because public health is important in all these aspects. And just to elaborate on Tony's statement, the keeping of animal regulations that are listed up there actually deal with it was really flu in birds. And remember when egg prices skyrocketed, all the chickens were dying. So it was a big movement then, because backyard animals, we don't want to contaminate the poultry industry.
So you have one animal control officer. What happens if something happens after hours? Will there be some sort of emergency?
Yep, there's backup with Walpole.
Okay.
I was just curious about what happens to the dogs that has the don't get adopted. Do you work with any of the like the Bay State, Cat Rescue League or the wants a valley lawn, there's places that, do you do that rather than euthanize the animals?
Yeah, he works with whatever organization he can to get them.
And do they take donations of like owls and, things like that? Do they need volunteers at the animal shelter?
The shelter, there is a sort of a Friends of the Shelter fund that we have. They do take donations. There's always, you'd always have to check with animal control to see what they need. As far as volunteers, there's usually not a need for volunteers. The shelter itself is sometimes empty for days at a time. It's a small facility out on Route 1.
Yeah.
It's designed to handle a handful of cats, a handful of dogs, but there are times where it goes days or even weeks without anything actually being in there. I know everyone likes to think they want to volunteer at an animal shelter, but it's really more of a holding facility than a shelter per se, because we just don't have the volume to operate a full service shelter. But you can always check with animal control. There's always, what's helpful with donations is sometimes, again, he might go 4 months without having a bird, and then all of a sudden he's holding a bird, and it's all right, well, we go and buy bird seed, but then 6 months later, the next time you're holding a bird, because believe it or not, little parrots and parakeets and stuff get out, and we have to go grab and hold them. There's sometimes a need for specialty stuff like that doesn't come up that often. Or stuff that we just can't keep in supply because 7 days a year we're holding a bird.
Date myself here, but they don't do school vaccinations anymore, right? And I remember being in 3rd grade, you line up in the school cafeteria, Dr. Lyden would be there with his, staple gun, and you got your polio. I mean, they don't, that's
But
all.
we definitely don't have a staple gun.
They don't do that. There's no like mandatory vaccinations for kids anymore. I know it's like a bad word now, but.
Well, definitely vaccinations is not a bad word.
No, but I mean, the kids don't
No, so most is,
get their vaccinations in school like we did when I was a kid.
so there are unique situations. So most vaccinations are going to be done at the pediatrician's office. We have very good vaccination rates in Massachusetts, and it's because we have a very good healthcare system. But there are certain instances, so H1N1, when we see new strains of flu, where everybody needed 2 shots, we did do vaccinations in the schools in partnership with the school nurses on that. When new vaccines come out and we got to catch everybody up, we do programs with the schools. We haven't done probably one, besides H1N1, there hasn't been one for probably 15 years. So it's rare, and H1N1 was one big incident. And when things like that happen, usually there's a state of emergency. We received a lot of federal funding to do that. So we were able to actually pay overtime and buy the supplies. So the money kind of comes with that when we have to do that. So those are the 2 recent instances doing it. But no, most vaccinations are now done in the healthcare. But except the flu, I would say the flu, because that is every year, and we kind of need all hands on deck. So you can get that from your healthcare provider, your pharmacist.
That's volunteer thing. That's if you want it.
Well, you can never force somebody to get a flu shot, but you can restrict them. So, for example, we are hearing about the measles outbreaks. If we do have a case and there's exposure in the schools, those kids that aren't immunized would have to stay home.
Yeah, we didn't go to school.
But we have very high vaccination rates, so, not going to, we do have a case in Massachusetts, though. So.
I'm curious, do you still require certain shots in order to enroll in school?
Yes, they need to show the vaccination, and either you have a religious exemption. There are reasons, or medical exemption, obviously. But like I said, we have very good rates.
Emergency preparedness, for what kinds of emergencies?
Sure, so after the anthrax scare we had, that's where it started, but the health department is charged with being able to either give prophylactic vaccinations to the whole population within a 72-hour period. So we need to stand up a massive clinic. And actually at our annual flu clinics, one of the reasons why it's so important is because we're actually drilling for those emergencies. So let's say there's an anthrax exposure, God forbid, in a high school, or a crop duster goes across Norwood with anthrax or any other biological
So it doesn't have anything to do with hurricanes or tornadoes?
It has expanded into that.
Yeah, public health in Massachusetts is actually responsible for operating shelters in the event of an emergency. So when we have an emergency situation, so a tornado goes through town, or God forbid, or something like that, or if there's a disease-based emergency, there were Ebola concerns a year or 2 ago, the public health department, public safety goes quickly into their emergency mode, managing the public safety incident and that's of people. The shelters and the medical care and the care and condition of people really actually moves over towards your public health department. We maintain an emergency management department. Bernie heads up our emergency management, but depending on the type of emergency, public health sometimes has a a large responsibility. So if we had to go to a shelter situation, it's actually the Board of Health that's responsible for inspecting and maintaining the shelters. Depending on if it's just a weather event, public safety is sort of limited in what they do. If you had a public safety related event, they're busy responding to that, that incident. And then the concern is with the sheltering or sheltering in place or the movement of a large amount of people, you're creating a health issue there depending on how you do it.
I always call it the emergency after the emergency. That's where public health comes in. So when we see the tornado go through, obviously we're not those first responders, but the cleanup afterwards, flooding, all those things are all going to be public health and health. There's health risks too. Sanitation in the shelters. We have plans for cooling and warming stations. So in extreme heat, so in extreme cold events, we have plans to stand up cooling and warming shelters. So it has really grown when you think about how health is impacted during emergencies.
So in a best case scenario, we're just dealing with diseases that are sort of out there. Worst case scenario, the Board of Health is sort of the department that's tasked with responding to a disease outbreak in the community. I mean, that's what they're trained health.
Yeah, just quickly, under planning and community involvement, you have a grant writing. So you have volunteers who write your grants?
Oh, do you write grants?
Yeah, I do actually.
No, I write them.
I've been looking for some volunteer opportunities.
That's my next slide. And that's something, the job I had in that first picture when I was posting the fish advisory, that job and the job I have now are very different, which is good. Public health is constantly changing, and I want the health department to be changing with it. So grant writing has become a major part of my function. Was literally my biggest accomplishment, and some people in the room definitely helped me in this, was the Drug-Free Communities grant. To get a large federal grant like that was a huge undertaking. But very proud of that, and thankful that we could bring that to Norwood. So when we want to bring new programs, new health programs, I do rely on grant funding a lot. We'll talk about, there's the big one there, $125,000 per year. 5 years, we're currently in year 2. After year 5, you can apply for years 6 through 10. You can't have more than 10 years of grant, though. So that's the Drug-Free Communities grant. Some of the things we've done with it is we funded the youth health survey at the schools, and that data, be looking out for community meetings because that data is just starting to trickle in now, so there's really good information on that. I know there's a lot of interest in juuling, and we have the rates of use both in the middle school and high school of e-cigarette use. But there's a lot of information, more than just substance use in that survey, but it's really valuable data. And making sure that data drives a lot of our programs. Because we have this grant, we have a lot of requirements obviously with it. I would say they don't give you that much money without making sure that you're spending it appropriately. So we have to prove with our numbers that we're meeting certain thresholds and show that over the 10 years. Understanding that public health takes a while to change behaviors. That's why it's a 10-year grant. So that's a Drug-Free Communities grant. Minds Matter, like I mentioned earlier, that's a 2-year grant for $48,000. Majority of that does go to the contract for the interface referral service, but we do have some funds to do programming in the community, and we partnered a lot with Impact Hard because of the close connection between mental health and substance use. Recently, we started applying for the FDA standards grants, and this is to standardize our food program. It's kind of the bread and butter of public health or food inspections. That's what everybody knows we do. But really the FDA is looking to standardize inspections across the country. Every inspector sort of does their own thing and interprets the code differently. What they want to do is have a more even enforcement, same enforcement across the country. And again, we're always that odd egg in Massachusetts because the way we do deliver services is our little fiefdoms of towns, where most of the other states have counties with large county health departments, and they can sort of regulate on the different models. We talk about emergency preparedness. We work with a group of 8 communities. We call ourselves Norfolk County 8. We were 7 last year. We added Walpole, so that we're growing. We started out mainly just doing emergency preparedness, coming up with plans, seeing how we could work collaboratively. We've grown beyond that. We've applied to a lot of other grants done, occupational safety with nail salons. We do some of the FDA grants together, so really collaborating with neighboring communities. These are revenue sources within the town. But other grants, we might host grants that are across 8 communities, and we all rotate. So if we receive benefits from grants at numbers that you might not see here because other communities are hosting that money, but we receive the benefit. 2 examples are that through the substance, this is a substance use collaborative that we have 4 communities in, and we were able to fund a curriculum in the schools, and all 4 schools, so Norwood schools got alcohol and EDU curriculum from that grant, as well as some of the TIPS trainings that we've been doing with our liquor licenses in town. Because again, the grants housed in Needham, but we receive the benefit of it. So I talked earlier about the flu reimbursement. We do bill Medicare private insurance for the flu shots we give. And then that funds the next year, and it also funds our sharps collection program. So, you know, that's always a balancing act for us. We don't want to order too much vaccine and not be able to get it out, not get the reimbursement to not be able to buy it next year. So that's always an added pressure for us. And I like to say, you know, the idea is that we want to get as many people as vaccinated as possible, but have town pride and come to your local health department's flu clinic, because that allows us to fund future clinics. But wherever you get it, just make sure you get it, the flu shot. And then these are all our fees collected on CFY18, show you full year. And that's permanent license. We actually increased our hazardous waste day fees because we are seeing such an increase in those costs. So that's all the money that we bring in. Finally, the budget. That's why we're here, right? So, like most of the departments here, we are mainly salaries. That's the majority of our budget. That is going up about 2%, all related to the COLAs. No major changes there. Because again, any new staff was grant funded. Major changes in operating expenses. Hazardous waste day has seen a huge increase. Last year we needed a reserve fund transfer, and to be honest, the year before that, Public Works was able to bail me out. So this has been a huge rise in cost, as we've seen with our curbside recycling, same waste streams that we use for hazardous waste day. Costs have just been increasing, so unfortunately we need a large increase of $15,000, which is 38% of that particular line, to maintain that level of service of 2 hazardous waste days a year. Some savings. I talked earlier about the dental program, switching to that contracted program. We have seen a huge savings in that. We saw savings right away with the reduction in staff. It was part-time staff, non-benefited, but still those salaries, we were able to transfer to a contract and saw some huge savings there. So at least that balances out some of the increased costs of hazardous waste. Overall, it's only a 2.5% increase for level services in the town. Any other questions?
Questions for the Public Health Department?
Good.
Thank you, Sigal. I learned earlier this year it's possible to get a flu shot and still get a minor version of the flu. But I was told I was
my marketing.
I was told I was not giving up placebo.
Thank you, Sigal. And next up and last for this evening is we have the Norwood Light Broadband Department.
In the library?
Oh, library. See, I almost forgot about the library. Library, you're up next, sorry.
Next group.
Yeah, actually, we're supposed to go after the police department, so we've been going out of order. My apologies to Charlotte Kennelly, our library director. You are up next. Sorry, guys, you'll be up in just a minute.
So I'm going to tell you probably a little bit more than you really have known about the library tonight, just so that you'll have a good overview of what we do, who we are, our building, and what our funding is. So first of all, we're really a networked library. We're part of the Minuteman Library Network. We pay an assessment of about $42,000 a year in order to be part of one of the 41 libraries. And your library card can be used at any one of the Minuteman libraries. And all public libraries and most academics and are part of the Massachusetts library system. And the most important thing about the Massachusetts library system is that it provides the delivery of 14 to 15 million items across the state every single year. And the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners is the agency that oversees libraries and makes sure that library services improve every single year. And we have, I'll show you on another slide afterwards what the requirements are. These are our people, not all of the people. This is in front of our holiday tree that we build every single year. We do have 21 benefited staff. We have, most of the rest are all part-time. One thing we're really proud of is we have 17 full and part-time staff with master's degrees in library science who are working at the library. We also have a full-time custodial and security staff, which is very important. We're proud of the fact that 75% of our non-custodial adult staff have a bachelor's degree or higher. And we also have been affected, you should know, by the minimum wage. It was $8 an hour not long ago. And it's creeping up, and all of our part-time staff are affected by that. We have a board of library trustees, and we have a few here tonight. And there are 6 of them, and the current board members, and then the directors of the library, which is, I think, very interesting because I'm the 8th director since 1898. And I've been here a decade. And here's the library building. Some people probably remember some of the stages, probably not the first one. But this was in, we were so lucky to have a benefactor in this town, in George Morrill, who built the library, very similar to Carnegie, who built 3,000 libraries around the world. But George Morrill built one, and that is our library, and he turned the keys over to the town. And the Plimpton wing is at the back of the library. You probably know it because the Simone room is in that. That was dedicated in 1928, the same year that the town hall was built. And George Morrill's other daughter gave the money for the Plimpton wing. And then in 1965, there was a major addition, and in 2001, there was a renovation. But what's important is that it's an aging building. It has an infrastructure that is 121 years old, and the town has been wonderful in the last few years to replace the carpeting. The chiller is being replaced right now, and the boiler was replaced a couple of years ago, and they've been helping, the town's been helping modernize some of our equipment. And despite the fact that Walpole and Westwood and Canton and some of the other libraries around are twice and 3 times as big, people love to come to our library. We had nearly 200,000 visitors in calendar year 2018. These are the requirements of Massachusetts certification. You've probably heard about certification. It's really important because the Massachusetts general law states that the municipality must appropriate a figure of an average of the last 3 years' appropriations has to increase by 2.5%. And we all know what happens when that doesn't happen. We have to file for waivers. And a number of years ago, there were a lot of libraries filing for waivers, but since the economy has improved, that hasn't been the case. And fortunately, we have never been certified normally. A library must be open to all residents of the Commonwealth and make no charge for library services. Norwood's library director has to have a master's degree, and we must spend at least 12% of our municipally appropriated funding on books and materials that we lend. That is that's in the statute. And we have to file 2 reports annually, 2 very important reports. If we do that, we're certified, and we also get our state aid grant. So we are books and more nowadays. As you know, in the last probably couple decades, things have really changed. Not only do we have to have a book in print, we have to have the book in large print, we have to have the book in audio, we have to have it in downloadable format. So we're spending more money in order to have everything that we need. And these are all of the things that we have that are sort of like the books that we remember the library being about, including all the downloadable books and all of the other services, poster, blood canopy. And the library patrons checked out over 272,000 items in 2018 calendar year, and 21,000 were overdrive ebooks and e-audio, and 12,000 in Flipster, Canopy, and Google. And this shows you the items checked out. You can see that most of the items checked out are still adult and teen books, then children's books, DVDs, which is really going down, and then a lot of those are the digital items. This is very interesting because since 2014, we actually have had ebooks since about 2007, but since 2014, you can see the increase in our all of our digital materials and our overdrive. And if most of you read audiobooks, you know it as the Libby app, which is our overdrive books. And that's increasing every year. It's already increased. We can see that it's going to increase this year. And then beyond books, we have the Library of Things. I don't know if anybody's been to the library to take out some of the musical instruments, toys. We have an entire catalog of those things. We have loans from outside Massachusetts. assessments that are facilitated by our adult services staff with Commonwealth catalog that you can browse for other things. The Simone Room space, 155 community room groups use the space free of charge in 2018. 3,500 questions were answered by our library staff, and 33,000 items from other Minuteman library network libraries came to our patrons. And then along the bottom, you see our other services. Of course, everybody who knows the Adult Services Department knows that we have an amazing staff in Adult Services, and I can't even begin to put all of the stuff up. The Lunch and Learn that Brian DeFelice has done, our very successful Norwood 101 program. We collaborate with Together Yes, we have book groups. We have 230 programs for adults with 4,500 participants. Services to children, that's another thing, I can't even get everything up here. But there were 183 story times, play times, and special events in 2018 with nearly 5,000 participants. Our outreach services, a lot of people don't know about outreach services, but our outreach librarians go out of the library to deliver books to those people that are housebound. We collaborate with the Senior Center. We have a Senior Center book club and special events. There are book clubs at the Walsh and at other housing and nursing homes. Our outreach librarian has had First Steps book bags in partnership with Norwood Hospital, funded by the Devon Foundation for Savings Group. And we've been doing that, I think, since 2011. And the annual essay contest began in 2011. And our outreach staff made 852 visits. And they held over 120 programs. We have copying, printing, faxing. People seem to be coming to the library for a lot of making a lot of copies and faxing. We fax for a small fee, and we scan to email for free. You can print from your digital device, and the IRS has decided that libraries are the place to get your tax forms a number of years ago, and now they are not supplying very many tax forms, so we are printing forms like crazy. We still are printing them even though tax day is over, and already this year we printed 5,700 forms. We're a passport facility. We held a passport day this year and last year. 481 passports were facilitated by our agents, and we have 7 of them right now.
Charlotte, can you just what's the revenue on the passports?
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Did I miss it?
I'm sorry?
You know, what do we get revenue for passport?
We get $35 per passport. That goes into our revolving fund, which I'll show you later as to what. And that is a fee that the U.S. Department of State makes every passport facility charge. So the post office, if you went into Boston, if you went anywhere where they have passport agents, it's a mandatory $35 fee. We do not charge a fee for advising on renewals, and we advise on a lot of renewals, so you can come in and we can help you out with that. There's no fee, and we don't mail it in. We also have to mail these 2-day priority. Every single passport is mailed, and that comes off the top. That's our postage fee that comes from the $35.
Charlotte, is that common in libraries now, or is that something that's kind of unique to Norwood with this passport? I know you've been doing it for a couple of years, but is it?
When we started 3 years ago, I think there were about 10 libraries
Really?
in Massachusetts.
So it's kind of unique.
Canton has, interestingly enough, the libraries that were doing it tended to be sort of in our area. But a lot of, and what's interesting is, you know, we still have, the post office still does passports here, whereas there are other towns where the post office has given it up. I believe in Sudbury, the post office gave it up. So, but we are doing passports. We are so busy doing passports that we don't feel that we're in competition with any other library. People are getting passports like crazy, of course. The Literacy Volunteers in Massachusetts. Yes.
Can I ask one question about the passports? I think the passport program is awesome. I went there with my kids, and I did not have to wait at the post office. and it was absolutely fantastic.
And we're friendly.
And you're friendly. Do you have to be a Norwood resident? No, so anyone from an area community can come in and take advantage of it, pay their $35, get their passport.
Right.
Awesome.
Literacy volunteers in Massachusetts, the English language learners, we tutor to the citizen, to the driver's license test, to GED exams, and we also do adult literacy, teach adults to read every so often. In 2018, over 90 students were helped by 75 tutors at the library. And these are volunteer tutors, so this is the bulk of our volunteer work at the library. And the literacy volunteers in Massachusetts, our department is funded partially by literacy, by a grant, which is called the LBM grant. And we have been providing literacy services since the 1980s. We've been providing outreach services since the 1930s. And we're very lucky to have those two departments in our library. There are 9 departments at our library. We have 4 notary publics currently, and notary services are by appointment during daytime hours at no charge. And 732 documents were notarized in 2018. Technology instruction, I know Carrie talked a little bit about that, but you can call and make a 1-hour technology appointment 5 days a week. You bring your own device or laptop. You can learn how to download ebooks and more than that. And there were 351 technology appointments in 2018. This is our newest library card, which we're very proud of. We love it. We also, if you want a new library card, you can keep your old number. We have a barcode duplicator, so you can do that, because usually most of you are logged in with about 10 different apps. Our library cards are free. Replacement cards are free, but a library card is free at any Massachusetts library. 1,422 library cards were issued to new users last year in Norwood. And nearly 50% of Norwood residents have a Moral Memorial Library card. Library funding. 94% of the library's operating budget comes from municipal funding from the town of Norwood. The library's revolving fund, which is the money from passports, from printing, from copying, and from all those services, pay for additional costs of services, programs, supplies, books, and digital resources. And the sources of revenue for that, of course, are passports, copier, faxing, printing fees, and library fines. We are, when we have some of the smallest fines, 5 cents a book, which is smaller than a lot of other libraries. We did cut those a number of years ago because we believe that fines are a barrier to service. Having fines could be a reason why somebody never comes back to the library again. So we are looking at, and there has been a movement in the United States with the American Library Association to really decrease fines as much as possible. And so we're kind of hoping that our passport fees can kind of counterbalance that. We also get money from grants from the Institute of Museum and Library Services and our literacy volunteers in Massachusetts. We also get gifts. We just set up a fund this week in honor of one of our oldest outreach patrons, and we have nearly $2,000 in honor of Annette Weber, and that will be used for outreach program. So our total operating expenditures in FY18 were $1,838,399, and 96% of that came from municipal funds, and the other 3.85 came from grants, gifts, revolving trust, etc. And of those other funds, these are what paid. That's what we used. State aid, revolving, the literacy grant is huge because it's $23,000 a year, and it funds the part-time, it funds all the supplies, the computers, and all the part-time help in literacy. And we have some trust and book funds, and the state aid grant, and the revolving fund. That's what we used for operating expenses last year. And then if you look at our total revenue, which comes from municipal appropriation and from other sources, it basically evens out for the year. It's 94% to 6%. So, our library budget requested for library salaries in FY20 is an increase of $40,000, 2.5% COLA and step raises. We have about 8 different librarians right now and staff who are getting step raises because they've been hired within the last 6 years. So we have 6 years step raise. And the minimum wage adjustments have made a big deal for our part-time circulation staff and paid staff. Our operating expenses, 403, a decrease of $4,000. I've been taking, I have not been, some of the line items, which would be maintenance and various other things, have to stay level funded, but we've been able to take money away from programming because we can spend revolving fund money on that and on some of the other supplies and whatnot. Capital expenses in our case is our new technology equipment. We have 60 computers in the library. We have iPads, we have barcode readers, we have a lot of technology. We do have a line item of $12,000 and that's level funded. So we have an increase of 2% over the FY19 budget, and you can't, I want to talk about that other slide that said that the budget had to go up 2.5%, but it's an average of the last 3 years. And the 2 other years that we had money put into our utilities and into our maintenance budgets. So we're fine with what's called the MAR, the municipal appropriation requirement, which is important for certification. Library salaries, these are all the library departments, 9 of them. Our library operating expenses shows you everything that we also have to spend 12% of our budget on materials that circulate of our municipal budget, so that this year is $220,000. And then this is our library capital, people counters, print time management, all of that. And 4 of our computers and a printer are supplied by the town of Norwood. And Wi-Fi internet is supplied by Norwood Light. Any questions?
Do we have any metrics on the volume of visitors that are using the Wi-Fi from the library?
Yes, we do, and I have that. I'm surprised I didn't put that up on the screen. And we actually are upgrading to a better system. That's one of the things that we're going to be doing with some of our technology money, to have some better access points in the library, and we will get really great numbers from that, and all staff cell phone numbers and device numbers will not be included in that report. So we'll have better numbers for you next year.
What do the Friends of the Library do for the library?
The Friends of the Library fund us about $7,000, $8,000 a year. That budget has been going down because their revenues from book sales have been going down. There was a time when they were funding us about $11,000 a year, and almost all of that $7,000 goes into library programming. It pays $1,500 for the summer reading program, and then the other is split between children's programming and adult programming.
Other questions for the library? Thank you very much, Charlotte. Before we go on to the light department, are there any other departments out there I forgot to bring up? So before Jim starts, and I'll have him introduce his team that's with him here. Monday evening we have the capital improvement plan, and Wednesday evening is the school budget presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim Collins, Superintendent of the Light Department.
Thank you. I'm Jim Collins. I have with me Dan Marcy, Kevin Jonathan, who are Del Hampton from the project. Coming to responsibilities, this is a quick picture of the transmission system. We have 6 miles of overhead transmission line that we own and maintain. It runs from Dean Street Station out to Sharon. That's where we do our interconnection with the steel towers. These are some of the services we do, the customer services. We do about 16,000 electric bills a month. 9,000 water bills a month, 5,000 broadband bills a month, for a total of 360,000 bills a year. It's the customer service staff, Jason, the electrician, the electrical supervisor. For overhead transmission, we maintain the 6 circuit miles. We have 5 miles of underground, 115 transmission, which goes down to Ellis Station. 138 miles of overhead distribution line, 55 miles of underground line, 28 traffic signals, 200 fire alarm blocks. Go out in all the different weather, the broadband service guy, then we were out in the storm.
Jimmy, that was Tallahassee, that last picture, when they were down in Florida.
We did go down on mutual aid. We're involved with the mutual aid system. Hopefully, we'll never need it, but we are involved because someday we could get hit with a hurricane. This past year in the fall, we sent a crew down to Tallahassee, Florida. This is them working. All of their costs get reimbursed 100% plus overhead. So there's no cost to the town, but it helped them tremendously as far as being able to get things done. This is there are over 2,000 public utilities in the country. There's 41 in Massachusetts. There's 80 in New England. Community owned, locally operated, responsive, non-profit, low cost. And I think the biggest thing about it is that it's local control. The rates are set by the Norwood Light Commissioners, which are your board of selectmen. They control the electric rate. We do have to file them with the DPU, but the selectmen actually, or the light commissioners actually have the control. This is our purchase and sales history for the last several years. The line on the top is what drives our purchase power budget. We're back up to 340 million megawatts, million kilowatt hours a year. And our sales is 328 million kilowatt hours sales. You can see we're growing. I mean, there's a lot of energy conservation, things are more efficient now, but we have seen some load growth, which is not that expected. I don't expect you to read this, but what I'm trying to show you is that we have a mix of power. We have a variety of power sources that we get. On the left, the bottom line, which is the big solid ground line, is contracted by. We have mixed power. We currently have, I'll show you this one, it's easier to read. Currently have 13 contracts in place. We're in the middle of doing 4 new ones, which are more renewable types of things. The state has a lot of legislation going to require certain percentages of renewable. The municipals have their own bill that they're trying to counter. The problem with the rules that they're trying to create is some of the contracts we have in place. One example is New York Power Authority. 3% of our load we get from Niagara Power, from the waterfall. And we've got it for many, many years. For as long as I've been here, we've got 3% of our power from there. The state doesn't count that as renewable. It has to be something you bought after 2014. Municipals buy long term. You know, they think for the long term. So that's one of the problems with the legislation. This is the page that you get in your budget report every year. It shows estimated receipts. They're going to be in the $63 million range. And the SS number, I expect it to be very similar to what it's been in the past. One of the highlights that we have, it's not always easy to do. Our average customer happens to be residential customer, happens to be 550. Most people that own homes know their bills aren't that low. 1,000 is more typical for a homeowner. And this just shows the difference between the knowledge rates and the surrounding towns. We're surrounded by Eversource. This is where our power sales go by class. Residential, you can see is 28% of the load. Commercial 31, and industrial 39, 2% is municipal.
Just to give an example of what a large industrial customer is, there is a food manufacturer on Route 1, their electric bill is about 220 grand a month. So, all market moves.
Some of them go up to $1 million a month. So we have some customers. Our budget's made up mostly of purchase power expense, 78% of it. The other thing is small slivers, but most of the money is driven by what we buy. And once you buy it, then you sell it. But if you don't buy it, that number can go up and down. It's estimate. One new thing this year, some of our expenses have been shifted. Indirect expenses for the town hall, 349.9 number up in the top right corner. Every year that's been taken is an expense in the DPU report anyway. This is not a new financial thing. It's just shown it differently now. It's broken out. This includes some of the expenses for selectmen, general manager's office, town accountant, treasurer, and town council. Going down to the bottom of the salary to make it simple, if you took the salary line and overhead, and overtime rather, multiplied out by 2.5%, you can see it's about $100,000 increase, plus the shift in the expenses, which is $350,000 roughly. Come out with $450, the difference is $495. The rest is really step increases that different employees got. This page is a little bit different. This is all of the operating expenses. The biggest number is the change in the purchase power expense, which is $900,000 up in the top right. That has to do with growth. Last year we experienced about 3% growth. I predicted 1%, so I'm very surprised to see that. We had more journey moving to town. That made a big difference. The next year, some of the costs are going down. The capacity cost, the three different parts of the power bill. One is capacity, one is transmission, and one is energy. The energy cost has been stayed pretty flat. It's predicted to stay fairly flat into the future. Capacity is at its peak right now. It's going to go down a little bit next year, and that will help us. Unfortunately, transmission costs are going up about 6% next year. So all of that is driving a slight increase in the power cost. The next big increase, these are all detailed also in the item. But the next one is in the collecting administration line, the $58,000 number. $30,000 of that has to do with the computer conversion. To convert the old system into the new system. That should be a one-time expense. Some of the other stuff is the increase to software training is a big increase. This is the training for the CSI, the customer service staff. In February of this year, the town falls under OSHA rules and requirements, and it has substantially changed our training requirements. It has more than doubled the amount of training we have to do, and also increased in some other areas, increased costs and requirements. One other little bit of that, we missed the postage increase last year, so there's a little bit in there for postage. Going down the line, the $9,000 increase you see has to do with annual dues for American Public Power Association, New England Public Power Association, and Mass Electric, Municipal Electric Association. Those combined dues have increased by that amount. The $15,000 number has to do with maintenance contract, building maintenance. The $18,000 number has to do with increases to maintain. Right now we're maintaining 8 buildings. Soon we'll be reducing that number, I hope, next year. And that should go down, but that's going up because we will be picking up another whole building. The $61,000 is the safety and training line. That has to do mainly with the training's increased and training more than doubling. The licensing requirements are becoming more strict. The training for the licensing requirements is becoming more strict. All the linemen have to have multiple licenses now, hydraulic license, digging licenses. They all, of course, have CDL. But the training for that has gone up. Safety, what that number is, why that number's gone up so high, that's all related to the OSHA training. The $33,000 increase, you see, has to do with tree trimming. Tree trimming increases. And the $36,000 number on the very bottom has to do with testing and maintenance of all of the switch gear in the station. At the stations, we have things that we are required to do by NERC, which is North American Energy Regulatory Council. They have strict requirements. They actually have the ability to fine us if we don't meet it. This year is the first year we're actually starting a second audit. They audit that you do the testing and the training for various things. The audits are very, very painful. Involves a lot of time, a lot of paperwork, but you have to have the record. It all has to do with record keeping and making sure that the relays get tested on time, batteries get inspected on time, and that type of thing. This is the depreciation budget, the capital budget, if you would. This is based on 3% of our plant value. This is by law, by Chapter 364. We're required to do this. This money gets distributed to buy meters, wires, poles, trucks, any capital item that you can think of is what we spend. We have a detailed schedule of things that we do with that, but this number is fixed by law. This is just an explanation of basically what I told you. This is a picture of hopefully what the building comes out to look like when it's all done. This is organizational chart. This is one of the projects the engineers are working for. It's an outage map. Actually, with the new AMI system that we have with the meters on the house, when the power goes out, you get a little blue star you see at that number 60. So we actually know when there's an outage. So you can see how big it is. We have out, what kind of feeders are out. When it happens, this is new. This also has to do with, you can see the new street lights on the poles shown there, shown some of the wires. This is the broadband organizational chart. And that's it for electric, and we're going to go into broadband unless there's any questions. I'll keep moving here. The same type of thing, you get this in your book every year. It shows the operating results we anticipate. Data status quo basically for broadband. This is an interesting chart to show the competitive, we have 3 suppliers in town of video services. All 3 services have the video count decreasing. We happen to be on top, thank goodness, but you can see that people are going to stream. The picture of the fiber optic rack line at the head end. The telephone number, subscribers are dropping off. Well, people go to the telephone. The service that you see increasing is the internet service and business customers. The business numbers are going up. This is the breakdown. Most of the cost for broadband is in programming. That's the biggest single item. The salary, there are no real changes. There are a few step increases in companies and tax and stuff. The increase, you can see the programming cost is the biggest increase, that's 4.9% increase. Even though the customers are dropping off, the programming cost is driving us crazy, really. Everything else is going down with a minor exception. I'll go back. I think the reason this number is up a little bit, there's no borrowing this year in broadband. This is how we buy the boxes, we buy the routing, we buy the wire for all of our installations, using the capital expenditures. But we took, last year we had borrowed a little bit of money, well, the year before we borrowed money. That's why the number there goes up and down. This is whack with some of the programming, an explanation you have in your handout. Traffic control and fire alarm. There's no changes from last year. There's no real changes other than combining these two budgets together. It makes it a little simpler. The bottom line is very similar. Street lighting, as everyone knows, the street lighting budget's going in the right direction with the cut over to LED. It's been completed now. We actually have just completed downtown. So this number will be going down a little bit more next year, but not substantially. There aren't that many lights left to convert. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
So we know that digital fraud is continuing to increase, and we know that various regulations are trying to tackle various forms of digital fraud. Do we expect any expense increases for our own, the way we run things with our internet or email services, or any of the things that we're managing ourselves related to security or impacts from regulation requirements or anything like that?
That's it. Cost increases due to cybersecurity for my internet service.
Daryl, do you want to?
Sure. Not any significant increases. We see in the future that the internet's probably going to become more regulated than it is right now, and along with that, it's going to become, cost to the federal government, USF type charges and regulatory fees and stuff like that. But at the same time, the cost of these services are going down, so it should probably offset it. Obviously, it's staying pretty low.
Sorry, this is Darren Hanson, our broadband manager, just for anyone who doesn't know it. Unfortunately, most of the cases of cybercrime or cyber theft that are out there that affect people's email are because people are clicking on things they're not supposed to. So when you get that email saying you've won $1 million, as sad as it sounds, people are still clicking on things like that and causing viruses. If we could all just behave better, we would have less cybersecurity issues. Yep.
Can you just comment on the fire alarm system? What's the usage trend on that? Is that a system that is going to require capital expenditure in the future?
So that's the manual system that you still see around town. The usage is next to nothing. There may come a point where we would need to either upgrade or invest in the system or decide we don't want the system anymore. It's actually, that's a levy fund. It's a taxation cost with managed by the light department, right?
It's actually a town, this is a town budget. There are about 200 street boxes that currently still exist. The benefit, my understanding is the benefit of the fire alarm system is more for business owners. They get a reduction, I understand they get a reduction in their insurance, and it has more to do with water damage. In other words, if a water pipe, sprinkler pipe opened in their business, it sets off the fire alarm, and at least it notifies them rather than let it run for days and days. My understanding is that's the biggest advantage to maintain the fire alarm system. But we need to run the wires, it's a single wire system. And if you're running the wires past the business, you might as well have it available. If there's a car accident, the people don't have a cell phone and they want to pull it, or a fire. So it's a pain in the neck to maintain.
So if there were going to be any capital expenses, it would probably be in the head where it originates from at the light department, and also the fire department has a digitizer that's believe it or not, it's a slave to the master that's at 206 Central Street. And periodically, I think I bet it's been 10 years, but every once in a while, they won't support it anymore. I forget who makes it, it's Digitizer, the company. And we may have to purchase that and install it at both locations. But there's nothing imminent. I would say we're good for several years.
I noticed there's a line item for advertising. What kind of advertising do you do, where, and about what? And do you see a good return on that?
Was that for electric or for broadband?
It just said advertising.
We both have an advertising
Yeah,
budget.
two different budgets.
Sure. So the broadband budget is much bigger than the electric budget. We have
In
to.
terms of advertising.
Pardon me?
The advertising budget in broadband is much larger.
It's
than
much
They're
larger.
both 16 grand. I could be wrong. So, for advertising.
No, that's probably the light department.
Probably the light
Broadband
department.
numbers.
Much
How
higher.
much higher?
Yeah, the broadband budget actually includes the franchise fee that we paid to North Public Access and to the board. That number by itself is approaches $180,000. The Norwood light advertising budget is what we use. We actually supplement to some degree the Christmas holiday light downtown. The money in the town funds is nowhere near the cost to do that. So the only legal place that we could take the money out of would be advertising. That's the type of thing that we use it for.
I see. How about you, just trying to get more broadband
Well,
customers?
as Jim mentioned, we compete against the two largest telecommunication companies in the country. And the charts show that we do pretty well. And part of that is because we have to advertise quite a bit to keep up with that.
Are your speeds matching?
Yes, and sometimes exceeding, and our prices are typically lower. So.
Dovetailing that question, I'm very happy to see us on top of the pile against those competitors. So makes me very happy. I wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot pole. But for the customers who haven't yet come on board with our services, do we have a sense of what their primary reasons are for not coming to Norwood for broadband?
So there's, we have two apartment complexes in town we're not in. Believe it or not, what a lot of apartment complexes actually do is they sign exclusive agreements with companies like Comcast or Verizon, so they're the only service that's sort of allowed in there. I would say that some people don't like our cable service that much. We're not necessarily as competitive on the cable side, but part of that's because cable's dying and we don't want to invest too much in it. So it's all about the user. I have somebody who has come to me and has come to the department and said, well, you know, Comcast has this and Verizon has this. And if it's on the cable side, it's usually a generational shift. I'm more about the internet, for instance, so we have better speeds at a lower cost than you can get with Verizon or Comcast. But some of it's just people aren't aware that you can get broadband from your own community. We're lucky that when they come in to sign up for an electric bill, we're always grabbing them and saying, by the way, you can get our internet service. But the average person moving in thinks, oh, is this a Comcast town? Is this a what's the Cox Communication, or you know, who do I get from? The average person doesn't think, well, is there municipal broadband? Because there's only 3 municipal broadband companies right now in Massachusetts. It's Norwood, Braintree, and Shrewsbury. But what's interesting is municipal broadband is actually growing. I would say, I think actually there's a few more that are little by little getting up and running. And it's everywhere from rural communities in Western Mass are looking to do their own broadband because they still don't necessarily have broadband internet. And communities in Eastern Mass are looking to do their own broadband. And we're occasionally approached by neighboring communities to say, we don't like vendor X or Y, can you come in and do something? And we could, it's just a matter of whether or not they can cover the capital cost of doing that, whether we'd still be competitive. I think a lot of it's an awareness issue. And some people like to shop around and they like to sign a new deal with this company that gets them in at a lower rate, but generally if you're talking internet only, we're more reliable and we're a lot cheaper.
And there's one more thing. A lot of people moving into town may have Comcast or Fios from their previous home, and they're locked into contracts, and they have to carry those with them.
We've been seeing a lot of growth on the business side, but one challenge we face there too is that sometimes large corporations, again, they sign a deal with Comcast. So you take like a Home Depot or a CVS or a Walgreens, and we can go in there and save them thousands of dollars, but it doesn't matter because every unit of that business is with Comcast or Verizon or whoever. Questions on the electric light department, the broadband division? No, keep that's okay. That's 3 or 4.
From a technological infrastructure perspective, are we feeling like we're sufficient, or that our equipment's going to hold up good, or that maybe we're kind of lagging behind on some investments? Do we feel like we're in a good place right now?
Our plant is getting old, it's getting near capacity, so I see in the next probably 5 years, we're going to have to start looking at some major upgrades, whether to be sticking with the current technology or going to a direct fiber to the home type of service. But there are going to be some investments needed in 3 to 5 years.
in 2024, the bond payment, we make the last bond payment on the original system build out. So that'll actually free up a fair amount of money in the budget for capital investment to start making sure we're keeping the equipment current. And again, the challenge we're going to face in the next 10 years is we've got to keep the cable going for a while, but we may not want to invest in the enormous amount of money in cable. We want to keep focusing on the internet. Technology can always change. I mean, we all remember before we had a smartphone, and then we all remember before we had a cell phone. So in 10 years, the internet could be passe, and there could be something else different out there, but that's a risk that I think anyone faces. Broadband cable, light department questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. That concludes our general government budget presentations. If anyone has questions that come up or you didn't get answered, feel free to reach out to either me or any of the department heads. And this coming Monday night in this building, we'll be doing the capital improvement plan, so our capital budget, our equipment and facilities budget, and then Wednesday evening will be the school department budget. Thank you, everyone.